pretty similar, but they evolve away from these tentacles, and then you all of a sudden get these very small beings here. And if you look up here, it shows a three-fingered hand, which is really interesting because of the Nazca mummies are three fingers, right? And then over here, you've got these planets, and like this one here is being destroyed. So is that Tiamat or something in our galaxy, like you say, an intergalactic war, possibly? It shows these
No doubt.
pyramids with UFOs on top of them. Um, Down here, we've got, you know, the bird guy with the DNA. So this tablet's really fascinating. It's got a ton of information, but the fact that it shows these different beings like this here, I mean, this guy's super tall, but he's more humanesque. So I believe this is their creations before us. I think that there was a many creations that they had that were failed experiments. As in the Bible, it talks about one of the reasons for the flood was that they had a lot of corrupt genetics through the Nephil mutations, and they flooded the earth to get rid of them. However, in Genesis, it does say that there was Nephilim on the planet after the flood as well. So I think that that is really something that we have to look at, because in the fall of Babel happened because they worshiped their gods with stone idols. That was one of the reasons. And so likely we're looking at those stone idols that were utilized to worship those demigods versus the real God, and that's where this whole thing comes into play. The demiurge was created by Sophia, and the Sophia was a direct emanation of thought that came out of the source. So if you look at this on a lot of these, you see these beams or these rays coming out of this. This is a better
Yes,
one here. You can
I
see the
love
five
that
emanations, right? Five
source.
emanations that are feeding the pyramid eye, which then feeds the pineal gland. And so this source emanates its thoughts, and out of those thoughts, the Sophia, which is wisdom, she didn't use her partner. See, all these thoughts were created in pairs, and they were supposed to create new realms and new universes in pairs, so it balanced out these universes. But when she created the demiurge, she did it by herself because she had lost faith in that her partner was going to come back and mate with her or create with her. And so she lost faith, is what the story says, and in the Gnostic. And when that happened, she fell to Satan. And that's when she created the first demiurge, or this being. And when she created it, was all out of balance, completely messed up, because it was just her genetics doing it. And so she was ashamed of it. She hid it away in this place, and that's where we're at now. That's where our universe was created. The demiurge likely created in this universe, and then all the archons from him. And that's why they're, the archangels and the archons and things of that nature were created after the creation of the demiurge. And she never taught the demiurge how to be a god whatsoever. She was just ashamed and hid him away and abandoned him. And so this talk about the demiurge and the guise of the demiurge keeping us all slaves here on this planet from Yal the Baal, it's really an interesting thing, because if you look at this magnetic sphere that was warped by the CME, and you think about this, okay, well, maybe our powers are being limited. Maybe we are being held at 10% brain capacity, because the 14 volts or whatever we have when we're a baby, it starts decreasing as we pick up knowledge and information. And the further we go in life, the less we have. And so maybe we need more power, and we're not capable of achieving it from the sun. So we're deficient. And I think that's kind of why the guise of the demiurge is what it is, and why some people claim that, stuff like cannabis or something like that, plant medicines, can free your mind, man, because we're actually in this enslaved, constant reincarnation cycle. And in order to break free, you have to break the seven seals, break the seven sins, and ascend, right? And without doing that, you can't do that. That's why Jesus had to train, why the Buddha had to train to get enlightenment. And so I think that that's where we're at in this entrapment. So when the magnetic sphere hits, I think we're going to have an opportunity, or when it warps next, we're going to have an opportunity to possibly, push that. But it's also going to give, like you said, these beings the attempt to return, and that might be an ugly thing based
So,
on what Revelation says, right?
so wow, and to connect that into the Mayan prophecy, the back tune 2012, 2001, was the first year of the solar cycles where the sun did not do its 11-year magnetic flip.
Right.
Instead, it pulsed a little bit and it grew a little bit. And then 11 years later, the next, what should have been the next magnetic pole flip of the sun, again did not happen. And again, it just pulsed a bit more. And then
Hmm.
in 2023, we were too distracted with getting over COVID, but it was not mentioned that the sun did a pole flip, and it did not. And now they're talking about, oh, we don't know what the sun is in. It's in a next solar maximum. Like maybe in
Bingo.
40 years it's going to do something. It's like, what do you mean 40 years? It's every 11 years it's supposed to flip
It's going
its
to happen in
pole,
July.
but it doesn't do that, and it's now being seen as white, no longer yellow. What is white? White is the full spectrum of light, and it's pulsing. Our sun has just taken a into the new sixth or fifth age of man is a white pulsar. It is no longer that yellow little brown dwarf. It is literally turning into this white pulsar, and it is giving us a full spectrum, but it's giving our whole solar system a full
Yep.
spectrum. Was Tiamat, was Marduk like the home planet of potentially one of our demigods or something? And like, there's a lot more to the wipeout that happened, and
Yeah.
that is this Nibiru that's way out there. It's also going to be connected back in, but it's like we've always been like psychically connected into all of it, and that now it's we're all going to be fed from that same source. And I love that it
Yep.
shows the source and the source consciousness, and everything I have ever channeled or gotten, it's connecting to source. And that
Yeah.
when you get the source downloads, that is source consciousness, that is creation God, and we are a fractal of that God, and that is why they hid since the end of their interactions or whatnot. Humanity's true history is giving us that third dimensional sovereignty between us and our God, realizing, living as that we are the only thing, thus we are God. And then when we get reconnected with the demigods that created us and can now be re-interacting with them, but we're now as equal demigods with the different weapon technologies and everything else, where it's like we're not just these slave apes, we have other weapons that can also wipe it out. And that's the whole thing, right? It's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I think we've been upgraded. I think that the Ascension and the Easter, a lot of people say, "Oh, Easter is a pagan holiday." I always hear these things come on social media, and the reality is Easter is Ishtar, because when he resurrected, it says in the Pistis Sophia, he took the power of the fallen by 1/3. Well, how did he do that? Well, remember earlier I was saying that they when the Sophia fell and hid him away. Well, she left, and when she came back to check on him, he trapped her soul, and then he then had the Trinity power and was able to abuse her and into creation. And so that's where all these creations came from, and why they were just abusing it. And so if you look at that Pistis Sophia story, um that's the resurrection. When he died, he went down and punished them, or took their power by 1/3. And it also says that she went with him and he hid her away. And so that might be why we have remote viewers viewing this star system, quite a few thousand light years away, where the souls are traveling when they die, because she may be hid away there. And if that's the case, we absolutely might actually be seeing evidence of that with this star system that they remote viewed.
And like then it's like from different levels of these what is called demigods and different things, and that that there could be these Palladians or all these other different star system like humanoids, things that could have came and seeded the whatever the giants or the titans were from that used to inhabit Mars with its pyramids, that used to be
Right.
on the Tiamat, the fourth planet that is now. Why does the asteroid belt not fit into any model of trying to re-render what happened? That's because it got blown up and was a planet. That's why it doesn't add up. That's why there's
Right.
all of these little small microplanets. So those were its moons. And, so for all we know, all these creation stories are true of these, what we call aliens coming, and that they could have seeded whatever demigods were somewhere else in our solar system. And then it was
Mhm.
those things that then created us here, and that those things got wiped out. Who knows? Like, it would have been a war of gods, essentially, the war in the heavens. And
Let's see if I can find a piece. So on these pieces, here we go. You can see that there's Saturn on all these things, and we found that Saturn is likely the demiurge. And so Saturn worshipped in the Roman, all this, they were worshiping the demiurge. And so when you look at the Romans and how they became Catholics overnight, yet they inherited a lot of things, likely that's how they could keep the demiurge worship alive. And that's why a lot of people think that the Catholic Church is satanic, because they probably worship a being that was fallen to Satan as their God rather than the source itself. And that's a sensitive topic, and I'm not trying to get too far out of here,
oh,
out of line, but
but
nonetheless,
hey,
it's an
that
interesting
that's
turn.
key. That's
It
key
is.
because
It is.
they interject between the individual humans' sovereign right, right? They take that
Mhm.
sovereignty away. So that's humans enslaving humans and taking away the individual's connection to God, and then feeding it and enslaving it to
Bingo.
energetically the source that is still suppressing us, right? That's
Yep. And that's why I keep going back to that demiurge story, and why I've researched it so heavily, because it is it's why the Cathar were completely genocided, probably. It's why the Crusades and all this stuff seem to be so ridiculous in terms of violence and gruesomeness. It's like, to go in and colonize people and convert them to Christianity. How does this have to destroy everything and melt everything that they believe down? But seeing this now, this is what they were melting down. This is what they were hiding when they went there. Um, it wasn't the stuff in the museums.
you've got a question in the chat, and I personally hope you would live stream yourself returning it to them, but making sure you're allowed to live
Let me read
stream
this
the
here.
return of the demigods. And
Oh,
oh my God, Mike, are you going to be the first human to have an interaction when the return of the demigods come, when they demand their artifacts back?
I believe that these artifacts are not the demigods per se, but these were the stone idols made to worship them, and that the demigods would come into these places. And when they did, I believe that these pieces glow. I haven't showed this tonight, but I'll flip my lights here so you can see it. All these pieces have luminescent properties. So why, right? But if these demigods were
I
real,
love this part because it ties into the shining ones
yep,
and how they fit into those same roles, as well as the fact that in all the pre-Catholic, the old Eastern Orthodox paintings, there's the halos above all the saints, and does
bingo.
that show them making these glow, and the authenticity that you've got this archangel between. And then another one subgroup that fits into my definition of demigods would be the archangels, but they might even be one class up above. They're most
Yeah,
likely
I
above
think
that,
so
where
too.
they're plasma etherical and like just one or two steps below the overall God creation that is like the plasma everything, right?
Well,
Whatever.
and so the one that confuses me about this is if you look at Gabriel and the Islamic faith, and how that all happened, and how, some of these beings were tricksters and stuff. I mean, obviously Michael's one thing, but you have a lot of these other guys too. So my theory here is that these archangels, like you say, are these you know luminous beings or light bodies or whatever you want to call them, right? But they can inseminate themselves into this reality, and inside of this reality, because the demiurge was created without balance, everything in this universe is attempting to be like God or attempting to be in balance. That's why nothing we have, no square is perfect, no circle is perfect. Like everything is fudged, no matter how hard we try in this universe. So taking that grain of salt, and okay, if you're a god and you take yourself and make an avatar of yourself inside of this universe, now you're also dualistic. And now you also have to face the same challenges of being trapped that everybody else faces. That's why in the Bible, Jesus comes down and performs the exorcism of seven demons, which is one for every chakra, one for every seal, one for every sin. And once those are exorcised, that's when he dies and goes down and gets her and frees her.
I freaking love how it just keeps all tying together. And yes, you literally, Mike literally has what is probably most hidden in the Smithsonian as well as the Vatican, and that, yes, he has the real Indiana Jones collection in real life. And he's even going to show some video of them digging up more of it. And it's just,
Yeah, it's so exciting. So this discovery we posted yesterday that went viral, it's not just these two little 2-minute clips, it's a lot more. We had 8 hours of footage, and so it's going to take some serious effort to go through and edit that over the next few days. I was literally mid drift in an 80-minute long documentary that I've been working on putting together. So there's going to be a ton of content coming really, really soon, and I'm really looking forward to it because this discovery has a lot of room to resonate, I think, with people, as it's. I mean, uh,
it just keeps on coming, and it
yeah,
just keeps getting dug out of the literal ground from the dried mud that was whatever floods and cataclysm clearly wiped out this previous advanced civilization that we are the descendants and the leftovers of. And that it looks like, and it's documented in the fossil and genome records that there were these other humanoid or homin, whatever the F, but as well as the megafauna, the giant everything, and
yeah.
that, it's, there was
Well,
giant humans too, there was elongated ones, there was all these others, and all the creation myths and
you've got
legends
the ant
coming
people,
true.
you've got all these griffins and chimeras and manticores and homunculus and all these different creations of alchemy or creations of mythology, right? And I think that there's real important knowledge there because it's just like God being in every culture out there. It doesn't matter what God you believe in. Every culture out there has a God for the most part, and I think that's really important because as we were talking, the source versus this demiurge veal, it would make a lot of sense why a lot of people are trapped in dogma over the veal of the demiurge when it was much simpler, and why also maybe the
Oh,
truth shall set us free because Mary, she had to undo those. We don't know, but it is interesting because you go over to Bulgaria and like Transylvania and all those areas, and in Romania, there's actually caves that have these type of glyphs and stuff in there that we see on these pieces. And that lady, that archaeologist that reached out to me, she worked in Romania prior to going to Saudi Arabia, and because of the work she was doing in these caves, is how the sheik found her in the first place.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Do you mind showing us more of the different pieces and the different symbols and
I,
like one of the
I
most
want to show you this too.
fascinating? Oh yeah, your book huge and like this is
Th-
epic and it's
this thing, man.
actual
I
research and
mean,
work.
it is so deep. I went extra hard on this one, and I'm still sore from it in the wrist because literally to edit all these photos and get all this in there, um, we went to town and really tried to give, a full. a full disclosure within this book. But yeah, if you really want to study the glyphs and see the different, languages and read about all these pieces, there's over
Oh my.
400 of my pieces documented in here. This is volume one. And I have volume two with my business partners. He's got over 1,000 pieces in his collection. And I have volume three at my other business partner. So we've all been doing this. We're going to have a stack of these books that people can have. And it's like having the museum in your house. You cannot find this on Sumerian and Egyptian artifacts. They don't do this because they want you to visit their museums. They do not publish this data in its entirety for a reason to keep us suppressed. And I'm changing that.
And that is one of the reasons why I love it is that you're trying to open source as much as that you can, and that you constantly are like you overcome the scrutiny. You do not hide from it. You're putting forward as much as you can, and that you're putting as much scientific method, as much testing to all of this as possible, as much documentation of the excavation and all of it as possible, and documenting, publicizing it so that people see it and can see that it is real and it's not just coming out of some freaking Chinese 3D printer on,
Yeah.
like it's
Concrete. Yeah.
right. And yeah, if
Yeah.
you don't mind just showing some of the more
Yeah.
pieces with
Yeah,
both
you have to
the
switch camera. Oh, actually, that camera died here. Hang on, I can flip this one around still. It might not be as nice a quality, but oh yeah, it is dead. Okay. I still saw the picture when you switched over. I was like, wait a minute, this thing's still going. All right, must mean it's getting late.
indeed, yes. Oh my God,
All
I love
right,
looking
I'll
at
walk
it.
around with my iPad here.
Amazing.
Sorry
Like
if it's shaky. Guess I'm literally holding the
no
big tablet
museum
here.
would do this. They would charge you money to come in, and here Mike is giving away for free and sharing with the world so you can know that these things exist and their documentation coming out of the ground in Mexico next to the pyramids where it's all documented. But look at that. It's got Mesopotamian, Egyptian, elongated skulls, potentially like
Reptilian.
rays, the reptilians, like Thoth. It's all in there.
It's so awkward trying to be backwards with this. Sorry if I'm trying to like get the right stuff on there, but it's all backwards. There's Thoth. What's interesting about this Thoth
Hmm.
though is he's very different looking, and I don't know if that is Thoth, but you can see it's like a scaled with a much longer beak. I've actually only seen this being on this piece. I've never seen it depicted that way on any others. This piece is really special. It's a 4 foot star map. And what's interesting is we these star maps. I'll show you a better picture of them here. These have the night sky on there, and there's a sea. You can see the sea over on the left side. That represents the North Star, and so you can put that into the AI now, and it'll tell you when the last time the night sky was in this formation. And so we're getting some really interesting dates and AI translations of these objects. Um, so if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you can go to our website, and there's tons of pictures on there that you can take and put into AI if you're curious about them and you want to ask questions about them. And then we have a subreddit, Alien Carvings, and you can post your translations and the stuff that you get from there. And we're trying to keep a database of as many translations and as many ideas about asking AI different questions about these pieces, compiling.
Hold on,
You
hold
know,
on. You got to go back to that bottom one because it's what looks like the Babylonian sort of thing, but it also kind of actually looks more like what you just showed before, depicted as Thoth. So is that actually Thoth depicting with the handbag and the pine
no,
cones potentially? No?
no, I think the bird was a different being. It talks about the avians that were divine messengers and helpers, I believe. That's their relation. Now, if you look at in the Hindu, there's a being named. I'm gonna try to the Hindu. I butcher it always. It's not Brahma, but it's a bird-headed being that looks very similar to Horus and Thoth. And so I think we see. this being in some of these pieces, but no, Thoth is usually really exemplified. I'm trying to find a piece that he's on here right now. But then we also have, this is another good example here. This guy, I mean, it could be Thoth as well, but
Right? Yeah.
he's a very different pointed face. Could be Set. We don't know. There's obviously a lot of this stuff is older than Egypt. So we
Right?
have,
That's what makes it so crazy is it's like literally the pre-cataclysm stuff. It's the precursor to all of these
yeah.
it's the foundry. It's showing exactly what it should be. It's like slightly different, but like what ties it all together, and it's literally depicted in all of these. It just
Are you
blows my
familiar with the
mind.
Gosford glyphs?
Well, yes, I am in Australia, and
Yep.
they also tie in perfectly.
Not only that, there's a symbol on the one side that absolutely looks like a UFO. And if you look at these pieces, I'm trying to find, well, I can show you on there, kind of, but they has this similar type of UFO on the Gosford glyphs. Now, what's interesting there also is that the Gosford glyphs are written in a proto hieroglyphic language. So that's kind of, really bizarre because how did these Egyptian guys get to Australia 5,000 years BC or whatnot? That's this doesn't make sense at all. And
But
they say it was a
it
storm
does
or
when you
whatnot,
tie
but
in such things as the Crespi collection that
right.
also has these same proto languages and tablets with depicting the exact same things.
This is not safe for work, so I apologize, but I wanted to show this because it's very important. Not only is it made of glass, okay, but this is obsidian. This is not your standard glass. This will scratch with a
That's
metal knife.
obsidian?
This is obsidian, bro. Blue or
That's
green obsidian.
chemical obsidian green glass.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's completely clear. Like you can see through it in a level. There's no air bubbles. I mean, this is the most beautiful piece of glass I own. I have other pieces that weigh like 50 and 60 pounds of this material. These are found in Guerrero and Mikokan. But if you look at this, they're aliens and humans having sex. And this is like a big orgy. I mean, there's a phallus in that lady's mouth right there, if you can see it. Um, and I mean it gets down and dirty as we'll flip around here. I'm not trying to gross anybody out, but I
And
find
if
that
you
that that
held
the
that, if you
holding their
position that
hair and
over a
stuff. I mean,
candle, it would probably project that creation story image up, would it not?
it does. Yeah, you can actually put the images on the wall. Oh man, but
How do
yeah,
you pass knowledge down to keep telling the story? Well, that
well,
is the perfect artifact to show it and highlight it, no?
yeah, and they have these too. Like I don't know if you see this right now?
No, with just
Maybe
below.
maybe
Oh, we see half. Oh,
here I'll bring it around. I can't see. Oh yeah, it was turned too far down. Well, this here, you can see it's a cutout. If you put this in front of the fire,
oh,
you can tell a
oh.
story. It'll put the shadow on the wall.
Is this the tools that were used in Plato's cave and shadow?
Could be. It could very well be, or at least the inspirations of
Or
some of
what
that. And
was known and used before the new rewriting from the laws of Plato's, I forget
yeah.
the exact name there, but exactly that. And that they're metaphorically still doing it to us today.
Hmm.
Look at that thing. That's
Yeah. And so these. Sorry for I grabbed it on the wrong side. I'm a lefty, but these mirrors in this obsidian. So the Toltec elder Max, that he's one of the guys down there that allowed me to start filming, and he started doing